Hey guys, I'm doing a Diana build guide, and as you can see, I'm basically spamming Diana. The MMR I'm already playing in is basically in Master Elo, as you can see. I am showing you what to build on Diana. I've played many different games, I've tried different builds, and basically, after playing for quite a while, I can tell you what the best Diana build is, and let's get straight into it. Runes. On Diana, you wanna go Conqueror, Triumph, and then you can choose between Electricity or Haste, but in my personal opinion, just always go Haste, because it's much better considering that you need to spam your Q, you need to spam your W, and cooldowns is much more important than attack speed, because your passive already gives you attack speed, and your items are gonna give you attack speed, so this rune is not really necessary, so just go Haste. Now, do you go Coup de Grace or Last Stand? This depends. If you play against very squishy targets, pretty easy to kill, you can go Coup de Grace. However, if you play against champions that are, let's say, a Sejuani jungle, and they have like a top lane is like Set, and a mid lane is like, you know, an Orianna, and let's just say that they're a bit beefy, and it's not that easy to drop them low, and you know that if you want to drop them low, you have to suffer in return, then you can go Last Stand. So, general rule, if they have 2 or more tanks, you can go Last Stand. If they're like having 4 squishies, just go Coup de Grace, okay? As for secondary, Magical Footwear, Cosmic Insight, very OP, because you get your flash faster, attack speed, adaptive force, and scaling health. And that's it for the Diana runes. As for jungle pet, you might be wondering blue or red smite or green smite, and the thing with Diana is that, like, if you have red smite and you shoot your Rocketbelt, it procs your red smite. So let's say you need to gap close, Rocketbelt actually, the range is crazy. You see this? If it hits the target, which it does from super far away, because it gives a small dash as well, right? It slows them and you can chase them. So I would recommend personally red smite at all cases. I've tried several different smites, and on top of that, they actually buff red smite to 5% instead of 4%. So just go red smite every game and it's safe. There are 3 core items on Diana, which is number 1, Dusk and Dawn, number 2, Rocketbelt, number 3, Liandry's. And you might be wondering, when should I go what? So let's start with Dusk and Dawn, okay? When is Dusk and Dawn very good? It is very good against champions that are close range and squishy. And basically your clear speed gets faster due to that item, and your skirmishing is the best with this item. You might be wondering, why is this? Because with this item, it has the highest gold efficiency, and it deals the most damage if you actually use your Dusk and Dawn quite well. So take a look at this draft, okay? You can see in this draft basically that the enemy team has Irelia top lane, Kha'Zix, Katrina, Alistar. It's basically 4 melee champions. They're not really tanky, so Rocketbelt, Liandry isn't that good because they're just gonna fight you, right? And if you play against melee champions, you just want to have damage. And as for Lucian, sure, it's on carry, but if you play against 4 melee champions, Dusk and Dawn is the best item here. As for other items, I'll get to it, but let's go to Rocketbelt for now. So Rocketbelt, when is that good? Rocketbelt is good versus champions that have dashes, or if they're immobile and they're basically a bit squishy. Because if you play against carries and you can gap close, right? They're cooked. So in those cases, if you can one-shot their backline and kill them, then Rocketbelt is a very good item, right? And of course, it helps for engaging, especially if you have no engage. So take a look at this image. You can see that the enemy team here has Draven, an immobile carry, and a Smolder that's a mobile carry. Basically, your goal as Diana is to kill them in fights, if possible. So Rocketbelt here is better than Dusk and Dawn, simply because you do need that little bit of gap close to kill them. And it helps a lot, by the way. And you can see in this example here, this is literally the game I have Rocketbelt, right? So as you can see, I'm chasing an opponent and I have Rocketbelt. So right now, because I have Rocketbelt, right, look at me. I QE the minion, I Rocketbelt, killed Alistar, and I can basically gap close. So the extra jump that you get, right, is super nice, because not only, well, it helped me kill Alistar, let's say that for some reason Draven walked back and I couldn't reach him, I could just Rocketbelt ultimate. And that small distance, right, helps a lot. And now, boom, I have 2 targets, I still have my QE, and now I kill the Draven as well. So you can see that, especially against immobile carries, Rocketbelt is kinda nice, because usually if you land your ultimate on them, they're dead. Now let's talk about Liandry's. So when is Liandry's good? Well, obviously, if you play against champions that are tanky and they have a lot of HP. So if you play against champions that have like high HP and they're basically a bit tanky, right? that's when I would recommend the item. So take a look at this draft. You can see in this example here that enemy team has a Mundo, a lot of HP. Rek'Sai, that's a bruiser, that has a lot of HP. And just because they're Vayne and Veigar, it doesn't mean that I should go Rocketbelt, because if I go Rocketbelt, but I'm playing against the Rek'Sai and Mundo, my skirmish ability diminishes a lot. So if enemy team has 2 champs that are very beefy, then I would recommend you to go Liandry. And as for the other components of the items, that is something we'll cover now. That's basically the end of the 3 first items. Now I'll go more in depth. Alright, first item. Let's start with Dusk and Dawn as the first item. So, like I said, this item is very good if you play against fighters, so champs that basically run into you. So if you play against a champ like Kha'Zix or Irelia, just champs that are basically gonna fight you, right? That is the best item you can buy, because it has the best stats and you don't really need Rocketbelt. So, once you have your first item, what's your second item? So, second item, you wanna go Shadow Flame, especially if you know that let's say their jungler is squishy and the AD carry is squishy. Let's say their AD carry is a Jinx, their jungler is a Kha'Zix, and their support is a Nami, and their mid lane is, let's say, a Syndra. Then you can go Shadow Flame, right? But of course, in that specific champs that they have, you should go Rocketbelt, but you get my point. If the enemy team is basically squishy, you can go Shadow Flame. And as for Riftmaker, when should you go Riftmaker? You should go Riftmaker after Dusk and Dawn if basically the enemy team has champions like Set top lane. They have, let's say, a jungler that's like a bit beefy. They have like Xin Zhao and their support Alistar. Trust me, Riftmaker is very good because the fights will be extended and you can easily stack Conqueror plus Riftmaker, so longer fights will be better. As for third item, I would personally recommend you to go Zhonya's, because in that moment usually, I hope your mid and AD carry have enough damage, because usually you'll play against champs like an assassin maybe, let's say a Talon, or there's like some type of champions that can basically one-shot you after you engage, and you don't really want to get insta one-shot, because the main strength about Diana is that if you go in, and you press ultimate, and they waste your spells on you, you then press Zhonya's, and then you can go in again with QE, okay? So I would almost always recommend you Zhonya third, unless you feel like you can't die against enemy champs, and you feel like, okay, even if I go in, I will not be able to die. So in that moment, you can even go Rabadon as third item. And when should you envision you going Rabadon? If you play against champs that are like very easy to survive against. So if you play against a mid laner that has no crowd control, let's say Akshan, and the AD carry is Sivir, and their support is like a Nami, and the jungle is something that's not really big of a threat like Xin Zhao. There's nothing scary that if you go in, you get one shot, you know? So if that's the case, and you're a little bit ahead, of course, don't go Rabadon if you're like... I mean, yeah, don't go if you're behind, it depends on the case, right? But basically, usually Rabadon is a very good item if you feel like you can't die after going in. What about the fourth item? I mean, you know, if you go to fourth item, it should be either Zhonya or Rabadon, what you didn't go. Or you want to go Void Staff if the enemy team is buying MR. If they buy MR, then usually Void Staff is quite good because you already have a lot of damage. And of course, you want to go, you know, Magic Pen Boots. That's something you should almost always look to buy after completing your first item. That's like the standard build. You go on Diana, you don't go Tabis, you don't go Mercs, you almost always go Magic Pen Boots. You only go Mercs if they have like so much AP and so much CC, like they have like a Fiddlesticks and Syndra mid and Leona support, sure. But usually you go like Magic Pen Boots. And this is basically the build paths you want to go on Diana if you go Dusk and Dawn. But if you want to play it safe, this can never go wrong. You can go Dusk and Dawn into Riftmaker, into Zhonya. If you want always a solid build and play the same build, just go that build. It cannot go wrong. And now let's go to the next item. Rocketbelt. So you want to go Rocketbelt if, like I said, you play against champions that are immobile, right? And even if you're mobile, as long as their carries are squishy and you want to get to them. So imagine a champ like Syndra mid lane and an AD carry that's, let's say, Draven, okay? You just want to reach them. The moment you reach them, they're dead. That's when you go Rocketbelt, right? But what should you buy as second item? You want to go Shadow Flame if the enemy team is full squishy. So if you see that their jungler is squishy and they're having a champ like Kindred Jungle, okay? Their mid lane is Orianna, their AD carry is, let's say, Jinx, their support is once again a squishy, and let's just say it's Karma. Sure, if you feel like you can one-shot them in one clean combo, you can go Shadow Flame, if you're squishy. So you can go Riftmaker second, the same thing as Dusk and Dawn, right? If they have beefier champions, let's say they have a Sejuani jungle, they have like an Alistar support, you almost always want to go Riftmaker second then, okay? Usually, you can go third item as well, Zhonya, but that's very situational. If they have champs like Zed jungle and Total mid lane, they have like a double assassin. Then, trust me, Zhonya the most OP item, because if they can't one-shot you, you win every single team fight. So those are actually the 3 items usually that you want to be going as second item. This goes the same for Dusk and Dawn, right? If you play against double assassin, you can't go Zhonya. And yeah, as for third item, usually almost always Zhonya's. If you're ahead, the same as Dusk and Dawn, and you feel like you can go in and you won't die, you can go Rabadon. And then as the 4th, 5th item, right, there's Void Staff. And basically that's it. That's usually the Diana build you want to be going, and if you're not sure what to go, trust me, just build Void, Rabba, or Zhonya. Those are pretty much like the no-brainer builds usually that you almost always want to go. And with boots, that's basically 6 items, right? And that's it for Rocketbelt. Alright, with Liandry, what do you want to go for Liandry? Liandry, well, usually you go Liandry if they have like beefy champions, so a Sign top lane, a Xin Zhao jungle, and they have a melee support like Nautilus. Usually in those cases, because they have a lot of HP, it's not bad to go Liandry because Liandry basically deals max HP damage, and as for second item, it's almost always a Riftmaker. Because you go Liandry because you're tanky, right? And as for third item, what you can go is like Unending Despair, especially if you know that they don't have that much damage, and they are basically a mix of AD and AP and you want to be a bit tanky, then I can recommend you Unending Despair. So if they don't have too much burst damage and you think, okay, I can go in and survive. However, you can always go Zhonya's third if you play against champions that have burst ultimates. So basically like Sinner mid lane or Zed jungle, so you can basically disable their ultimate, right? And as for fourth item, you can still go Rabadon. Rabadon is always a very solid choice, because even though tanky, Diana AP scaling is pretty good. And as for fifth item, you can still always go Void Staff if they build some magic resist. And if they don't, then, you know, you can always go either one of those. Zhonya, Rabba, Void is always usually those 3. And with magic pen boots, of course. And that's it basically for like, yeah, what you want to be seeing on the enemy team and what item choices you want to have. And that's it for the item choices. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for the Diana build guide. And I am basically working as well on literally a champion guide. And as you know, I'm doing unranked to challenger on Diana. So I'll have to see exactly when I can finish it, but look forward to that as well. And subscribe to the channel if you want to see it ASAP when it's there. And I hope you guys enjoyed the build guide and wish you guys all a nice day and have a good one, boys. Peace.